Some of you might know by now that I'm not someone who typically gets upset by Bruce Timm being a bit heavy-handed with sexuality. Oh, Batman! Batman, I love you!
I love you too, Barbara. I don't care who your father is. And I don't care that you dated my son.
I don't care about Dick either, except for your Dick.
I can explain.
Because it's Thursday.
Hello, Watchtower Database, and welcome back to The Vanishing Point, the only bi-weekly YouTube show that goes over tiny chunks of the DCAU timeline to answer questions you've probably never even thought to ask. Today, we're going to be going a little bit off the beaten path and talking about bat sex, or bat-cest? Well, only a little bit off the path. There's still gonna be some timeline stuff, but you guys saw the thumbnail. I know what you're here for, you little pervs. While there were hints of Barbara being infatuated with Batman all the way back in Batman the Animated Series, it wasn't until Batman Beyond's A Touch of Curare that this relationship was canonized, as seen in this clip.
So you and Dick Grayson, like, dated?
In college. Puppy love. Later on, we just never talked about it. Dick finally got fed up living in Batman's shadow. He decided to leave. He was hurt when I chose to stay behind with Bruce.
As his partner? His girlfriend? Whoa.
Of course, this raised a lot of questions. The last time that we saw the Bat family at this point in time was in the new Batman adventures. And while Dick did leave between Batman the Animated Series and this new incarnation of the show, nothing else really seemed to line up. Barbara and Bruce weren't dating during this show. After all, we see Bruce with a plethora of different women, and even one that he married who ended up being a plant clone from Poison Ivy. It's also of note that A Touch of Curare was written by Hilary J. Bader, who also previously wrote the Batman Adventures of the Lost Years books, and nowhere in that run was there any hint of a relationship between Bruce and Barbara. So seemingly this would have occurred sometime after the new Batman Adventures. But then Justice League happened, and Justice League Unlimited, and all signs pointed to the Wonder Bats shipping. But of course...
No dating for the Batman. It might cut into your brooding time.
Dating within the team always leads to disaster.
So whether Batman ended up with Diana or not, which this slideshow old Bruce is looking at and out of the past leads me to believe it's most likely a not.
I know you loved her, but I cannot believe you did not save a picture of me as well.
Talia.
By his own words, dating within the team is a no-no. So it seems as though his relationship with Barbara would have had to have occurred after Justice League Unlimited. You know, in order to give him time to have a change of heart. In fact, this seems to be backed up by Mystery of the Batwoman. As you may recall, if you've been a long-time viewer of this channel, we've done quite a few timeline videos, and the research within points to Justice League Unlimited ending in spring of 2004, and Mystery of the Batwoman taking place in spring of 2005. They didn't come out in that order, but that is what the continuity clues point towards. Either way, during that movie, we get this brief interaction between Bruce and Barbara.
Bruce, it's Barbara.
Hey, Barb.
She misses you.
Spring break will be coming up soon, and I'll be back in Gotham for 2 whole weeks. Won't that be nice?
Yes. We'll all be happy to see you.
Don't drag me into this.
I just saw the news, and I was wondering if you'd gotten a new partner. Someone a little older.
I have no idea who she is.
Because if you had, I'd be really upset. Because I thought you and I were, you know.
Barb, we're going through the East Tunnel now.
Squeaked through again, didn't you?
I never fail to marvel at your narrow escape, sir.
This seems to indicate that Barbara's infatuation from afar continues, but she's a little bit more vocal about it now. Surprisingly enough though, we do end up seeing a point in time on screen where the two actually are dating.
Dick finally got fed up living in Batman's shadow. He decided to leave. He was hurt when I chose to stay behind with Bruce.
Dick Grayson, Nightwing, had left to establish himself in another city.
That's right, my dudes. Bruce and Barbara were a thing by the time of Return of the Joker. Although I feel as if this brings up a lot of questions about Dick Grayson's habit of moving in and out of Gotham. As I already mentioned, the first time that we see Dick move is during Batman Adventures: The Lost Years, but we see him move out of Gotham once again for the city of Bloodhaven in Batman Adventures Volume 2, which is set during the Justice League show. However, while Dick does say that he's moving to Bloodhaven to get out of Bruce's shadow, he doesn't seem too upset with Barbara here. Just a few years after his move, which would have occurred in fall of 2000, we see Dick back in Gotham, not just in Batman and Harley Quinn, but also in that movie's tie-in prequel and sequel comics. You could maybe say that he's just visiting in those, since we see him again in Bloodhaven during Justice League Unlimited, but it seems like a huge coincidence that he's just there in Gotham for a week, a year before the movie, during the movie, and then up to a week after the movie ends. For all intents and purposes, it seems that the Batman and Harley Quinn franchise moved Dick back to Gotham again. And this really has me questioning whether he actually lives in Bloodhaven during Justice League Unlimited or if he's just working a case there. Because once again, Batwoman would have been after the fact, and the Bruce and Barb thing still isn't happening by the time of that movie. Either way, what we do know for sure is that he's gone by the time of Return of the Joker, which is set sometime between September of 2005, Justice League vs. the Fatal Five, and 2007. For any of you that may be new here, if the overabundance of dates is throwing you off, we've got all those timeline videos that I mentioned neatly in a playlist that you can click and check out right here. Now, over the years, I've heard a myriad of complaints that this relationship is just weird. One of the largest being because of Dick's prior relationship with Barbara. You know, because Dick is Bruce's adopted son. But let's revisit how Barbara herself characterized that relationship.
In college, puppy love. Later on, we just never talked about it.
If you'll remember, Batman Adventures: The Lost Years gives us Dick graduating and leaving the Bat family in January of 1997. And then, as Barbara said, they never talked about it afterwards. So with Return of the Joker being at least 8 years later down the line, it seems as though enough time has passed for the wounds to heal there.
Old wounds. That's a Batman episode.
I mean, remember, she called it puppy love. And in on-screen canon in the DCAU, this relationship only ever came up in Batgirl Returns and Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero, both of which seem to take place towards the tail end of the Batman the Animated Series era of the timeline. So realistically, their relationship only lasted like a matter of months. Another argument that often comes up in these conversations is the difference of age between Bruce and Barbara, which like...
Oops, bad timing.
Barbara, come in. You've grown. It's been, what, 4 years?
Home from college for a visit.
Sure, I can see that being creepy. After all, in Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero, we get a confirmation that Barbara is 20 years old. So she would have been 16 at the oldest when Bruce met her. And going back to our math that we did in our How Old is Batman video, he would have been at least 28 by that time. So yeah, that would be weird if they had dated that early on. Despite the sizable age gap between the two, as I've stated all throughout this video already, the infatuation was more of a one-way street up until at least 2005. Remember, this is over 8 years after the end of Batman the Animated Series. So while billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne is in his early 40s, Barbara is pushing 30, if not already there. And honestly, I feel as though at that age, she should be able to make rational decisions like any adult. Sure, you could point out that from a real world perspective, by the time of Return of the Joker, they're still using her 20-ish year old model, and that doesn't really help to ease the discomfort. But two things here. They still use Tim Drake's early teens model when all timeline clues indicate that he's about college age by this time. And secondly, without the context from A Touch of Curare, we really get no hint of their relationship in this scene. So your discomfort is better directed at, I don't know, maybe what's happening on screen, like the torture. But even if we did see things play out between the two in this film,
what's the fascination behind shipping Bruce and Barbara? Because it was oh yeah.
Okay, here's the big secret, and it's not a secret. It's supposed to feel wrong. If you pay attention to that sequence in The Killing Joke, it's like, listen to the music. The music isn't going, ooh, it's sexy, they're hooking up. It's going, oh my God, it's tragic, they're hooking up. It's meant to be wrong. Two adult characters who are making a really huge mistake. It's not like, oh, I really want to ship those two. I don't. I really don't.
By and large, I think that the quick-paced criticisms of storytelling that have opened up in the internet age a lot of the times miss the fact that having a character make what we perceive to be a mistake is the entire point of a scene that makes us feel weird. While Bruce Timm in that panel specifically cited a scene from The Killing Joke to make his point, the audience question was open-ended, and the look on Timm's face before even answering kind of gives me the impression that this is a question he's been asked a lot during the years. And honestly, I think it really just boils down to this. Dating, and as Talia mentioned in that clip from earlier, even falling in love with someone that your son dated is weird. Dating the daughter of your best friend is weird. But honestly, relationships in general are weird. Like, put yourself in Bruce's shoes for a second. Literally all of his relationships are kind of off the wall crazy. Andrea Beaumont became a murderous vigilante villain. As we just discussed in another episode of the show, Selena Kyle couldn't help but return to crime over and over again. Talia is the daughter of a man who wants to erase almost all life on Earth and shares a problematic amount of viewpoints with that man. Susan, who I mentioned earlier, turned out to be a plant monster. Kathy Duquesne is the daughter of a mob boss, and Wonder Woman, according to Dwayne McDuffie, is 18 years old at the start of Justice League, while Bruce is already pushing 40. Yeah. That's a thing. Legitimately, the only potentially healthy relationships that we see Bruce in at all are with Zatanna, although that one only lasted a couple of months, and Lois Lane, but she's spoken for.
But you'd better be good to her, 'cause I know where you live.
But in his 40s, after all of these other relationships, a woman that he's fought side by side with for almost a decade, who shares a ton of his values, has been interested in him all that time and still shows interest in him. Mistake or not, it's easy enough for the character to make the decision that leads into this relationship. But all this being said, I'm sure you guys have a lot of thoughts on the dynamic between Bruce and Barbara's relationship. And honestly, it is an interesting conversation to have. So my question of the day is, how do you feel about the way it was handled in the DCAU? I feel like a lot of the complaints on this issue stem from Batman Beyond 2.0, which, while DCAU inspired, had no involvement from Timm, and The Killing Joke, which isn't DCAU at all. So more or less, I guess I'm just curious if you guys think that there's a way to do it right, or if this relationship shouldn't have ever happened at all, even if it is painted as having been a mistake. As always, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, so be sure to leave your thoughts down under in the Australia box. Before I go, I want to thank all of these lovely people for helping support us on Patreon this month. If you don't see your name on the list and you'd like to get on there the next time, you can head over to patreon.com/DCAU Watchtower and we'll get you on there for a pledge of as low as $1. Of course, we've got other tiers as well that include stuff like voting in polls to choose upcoming topics to cover, live stream chats with myself, James, and Ted, and even merch. Speaking of merch though, if you want to buy a t-shirt but don't want to sign up as a monthly patron, you can get those for a one-time price in our Teespring store. The link is in the description box down below. As always though, I've been Maddie Washburn. This has been The Vanishing Point, and we'll continue to stay those things so long as you continue to stay you. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Unless you're not subscribed. We looked at the analytics and it says that like most of our views come from people who aren't subscribed to us. You might as well subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you're already subscribed and you're missing them anyway, you should hit the notification bell and say, hey, I always want to get notifications about these guys' videos. That's the YouTube thing to say, is just to tell you those things. Maybe we'll see each other very soon. Maybe we'll never see each other. Bye. Kiss your dads, kiss your moms, kiss your son's girlfriend from 8 years ago.